Hello everybody, and welcome to another puzzle challenge video from chessuniversity.com. This is Ryan Murphy, and we're going to start this video off with the solution to yesterday's puzzle. So if you have not already solved this one, where it's white to play and win material, please do so now and take a shot at it, because I'm going to proceed with the solution. And once I cover this, we're going to move on to our new puzzle, which will be for, I should say also should be for beginner level players, which we'll get to in just a second. So again, pause if you haven't seen it. But if you want to continue, I'm going to go through with the solution now. So the key here is that this bishop sits on what we call a critical square. It's attacked once and defended once. And all white has to do is either add an attacker or remove a defender, and they'll win control over the c3 square. Now, there's not an easy way to add an attacker to the square in a way that also creates an additional threat that can't be parried. So removing the defender is what we're looking for here. And the best move is e4. After which either the knight will move away and the rook will capture, or the bishop will save itself by moving somewhere safe, and then white will capture the knight, winning material in either case. So e4 is the best move. In the game, black played knight b4, and then white should have taken on c3 with an excellent position, but instead they played bishop e5, and the game became kind of messy after this. But e4 is the right move, so if you found it, congratulations. And now we can move on to our new position, which you will see now is black to play and win from here. This comes from a game of a student of mine, and again, it was two players, roughly over 1100 on chess.com's rapid rating pool. And yeah, like I said, black to play, and I wouldn't say win, but find the best move. It's a very messy position in any case, but there's one move that's clearly better than the others. So that's what we're looking for. If you want to post your solution here to get rewards points on chessuniversity.com, please visit the official link in the YouTube description. And as always, I'm going to go and backtrack to show how the game developed up to this point. This is only going to be the 8th move of the game from black, so it won't take too long, but let's see how we got here. d4, c5, d5. I should point out a lot of people who are newer to chess might ask, why is black leaving their pawn on a square where it can be captured? And that's a very good question to ask. And the point is that if pawn takes pawn, this pawn that used to be on d4, which was controlling the central square e5, has now been deflected away. And there's a couple of things that black can do here, but in general, in the long run, this pawn's not going to be able to survive. And black's going to end up with two center pawns against one. So if white can't hold on to this pawn, and it usually proves very difficult to do so, they don't want to have their center pawn traded for a c pawn. That's the basic idea. So for example here, I'm not saying this is even close to the best move, but there's always this motif in the position where black can immediately use this check to capture the pawn. Now, this isn't recommended because black's going to fall behind in development by moving their queen so many times, but this is a motif you want to keep in mind whenever there's anything loose on the 5th rank. But more simply, if black just plays like e6, trying to simply recapture this pawn in one move with their bishop, it's really not that easy at all for white to defend. For example, you might think, why not b4? Well, then white's going to have a problem because this pawn chain is going to get undermined. For example, if a5, already this pawn chain's under a lot of pressure. If you take on a5, well, now queen takes a5 isn't so ridiculous, because now I take, and white's made a bunch of pawn moves that have just weakened their position, and black's still taking back all the material. What else? So taking is not a good idea. And if b5, well, then simply the pawn is captured with a good position for black. So the only other way to defend would be with either of these pawn pushes, but this pawn push fails to takes because of the pin. And the other one, c3, fails to a different tactical resource, takes. And now, if you want, you can pause here and try to find it. This is a nice common tactical idea. Alright, I'll assume you've paused. If not, last chance. The move here for black is queen f6, exposing the fact that the rook in the corner, which is unprotected, has no way to be covered. And so, yeah, white loses material here. They can play knight c3 and only lose the knight, but it's still a lost position. So these are good tactics to be aware of, and in general, there's other ways you could try to hold on to this pawn, but they're all pretty awkward. Like, you wouldn't want to play a move like queen d4, because then knight c6 comes with tempo, and again, this pawn's going to prove awkward to defend. And even if you can defend it, you're going to lose a lot of time in development. Another awkward move I've seen beginner-level players play, trying to hold on to this pawn, is bishop to e3. But honestly, if your opponent has already played a move like bishop e3, you can count that as a major success. And I should also point out that it's still not trivial to hold on to this pawn if black wanted to insist on it. But black could simply just ignore and just develop knight f6, bishop e7, and they'd still have a pretty reasonable position. Though I think going after the pawn right away is the simplest. Okay, so that kind of explains it's a long derailment, but I just wanted to explain why this pawn shouldn't be taken by white. So d5 is a more, I would say, more prudent move, taking away some space, keeping the pawn in the center, and that's what a lot of strong players will do. Just grab more space. My student played b5 here, kind of in the Banco Gambit style, trying again to deflect a pawn away from the center to loosen up this d5 square. b3 was played by white. This move's not so great. I think now, especially if black goes for a fianchetto setup, the bishop's going to be really good, because this diagonal is incredibly open. So b3 is not exactly a recommended move. But instead e6 was played, challenging the center directly. Also very good. D takes e6, f takes e6, of course, taking towards the center, and at some point preparing to play the move d5 to grab a lot of space in the center. White played e3. And now this move's not technically what I would have done. I don't think it's probably an inaccuracy, to be honest, but it leads to a very tricky position very quickly, where both sides make mistakes, but ultimately, yeah, it just becomes very messy. So knight e4 was the move played. It has a very cute threat, which, if you see that, you're going to see the solution to the puzzle. But an additional idea I should point out, I don't want to give away the main idea, but one idea of this move is to play queen a5 check, and it will be somewhat awkward to deal with the check on this diagonal, because the knight, you'll notice, covers both of these squares on which white might like to block. So that's one idea of the move. But in general, in a position like this, it's usually more prudent to just finish your development as black and then get castled and then take action like knight e4. Because usually moves like knight e4, the threat can be parried without too much of a problem. So here I would have preferred maybe to take first. You could flick in this move d5, or you could flick in bishop b7. Either of these look pretty reasonable ways to develop the position. You could even go knight c6, you could go bishop e7, but as long as you're playing development moves, going castles and then playing d5, I think black has a very reasonable game. So it's the opening phase, that's what you're supposed to do. Get your pieces out, control the center, get your king safe. So yeah, knight e4 was played, bishop d3, d5, and here white missed a chance to have a very nice position. I mean, there were two moves, as far as I can tell, at least, that give a good position for white. A simple one would just be to take the knight, and then after takes, there's two different ways here that white can achieve a much superior position. One annoying move is queen h5 check, and then queen e5 with the fork on the rook and on the pawn. So this wins the pawn on e4. Another one that's probably just as annoying is queen takes d8 check. When this endgame, or this queenless middle game at least, black has a very terrible pawn structure. And they're even down a pawn if white decides to take on b5 here, though other moves are probably much better for white as well, just because of these doubled pawns in the center. So, a couple different ways that white could have exploited this this move order. But instead they took on b5, and this leads us back to our starting point. So here again, it's black to play and find the best move. Hopefully you guys are able to do so. And I will see everybody tomorrow in the next puzzle challenge video. Thanks for watching.